Welcome into the Kings Beat podcast, a Blue Wire podcast brought to you by Prize Picks. I am James Ham. Joining me tonight, Fox 40, Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
I'm in the holiday festive spirit. I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving tomorrow as we both record this and go live. It's our first live in a while.
It's been a while, man. It's been really difficult to get all three of us together at the same time and on the same page. It's just been one of those stretches here where we're all working different jobs.
Yeah.
Let's see. What do you got for a podcast candle?
We're going with Tree Farm again. I think I'm going to roll through with this for a little while. I don't know if you can see that. There it is. That is really warm, I might add. Ouch.
Okay. And a break from the norm. I actually have one tonight. There was one sitting. I was making hot tea.
That's a very expensive looking candle, as I would expect.
Yeah, I hope it's not a gift that my wife was giving to somebody that I just decided to use. For roasted cranberry. I thought it sounded very Thanksgiving-y.
Wow. That smells like Christmas, I bet.
It probably smells. You know what? My wife makes her own potpourri. She does a cranberry, like fresh cranberries, a little bit of water, sliced oranges, cinnamon sticks, and then she just puts it on the stovetop and it just sits there and simmers all day.
Cool.
So my house smells good. It smells like Christmas or festiveness. We are doing a live show. Hopefully we get more people in here, but to be honest, we all know it's a holiday. We just wanted to get a show up and out the door so people would have something to scream and yell about tomorrow morning for Thanksgiving and be all angry and start their football watching and with some of the Kings beat here. Let's get to the normal stuff. Number one, if you're not a subscriber to the show on YouTube, then you cannot comment in the live section. So all you got to do is subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and then you instantly can start making comments. So that's one thing. Number two, become a supporter of the Kings Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com, become a premium subscriber. So you get invited to things like the Off the Record with the Kings Beat virtual happy hour. We're going to do something tonight too that's a little different. Our friend of the show, the great Pete Youngman, Pete the trainer. He reached out and said, hey, I would like to gift a Kings fan a premium subscription to the Kings Beat. So he went in and actually bought 2 extra. And we're going to give one away today and then one away in a future show. But we'll figure out a reason to give one away sometime during the show. And so people that are in here, you are in it for a potential Kings Beat year-long subscription, which is like $75, which is really cool.
That's a legendary move by Pete the trainer.
It is a legendary move. He's flying into Sacramento. He'll be here for like 24 hours, and then he's got to go somewhere else. So yeah, I think he'll be back in town for when the G League Ignite play the Stockton Kings, I think next week. So maybe we'll all connect and have a low calorie lunch, because that seems like what he does.
That's exactly what he does.
He's a healthy man. He's a very healthy man. All right, Sean, we got lots to talk about tonight. Again, if you're just tuning in, we're doing a live show that just after the Kings and New Orleans Pelicans just finished the second of a weird 2-game stretch here. Let's take on sort of what's happened here over the last couple of days, because we haven't had a podcast since the Kings played Dallas on Sunday. We haven't had a podcast since they got clubbed by the Pelicans on Monday, and then we have the game tonight. And so there's all three of these things kind of hovering. Number one, let's start with the game that we saw against the Dallas Mavericks on Sunday. Sean, for me, it was one of those games where it looked like a heavyweight battle, and then the team that was the aggressor just kept being the aggressor, and the team that was on the second night of a back-to-back ran out of steam. Was there anything different that you saw in that Kings Mavericks game on Sunday that you would like to kind of point to?
Not particularly. I mean, look, I think before this, things were. I think that's about as you could argue about as good as the Kings had looked at times. I think there were maybe a moment or two you might scratch your head at, but yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, the Mavericks game is kind of what it was. I think a lot of people were probably watching the Niners game and flipping back and forth at various times. I was in San Francisco for for Santa Clara for the Niners game, and then having to watch it back late at night, I found myself dozing off, to be honest. So then I rewatched it the next morning, found a few things that I really, liked. I mean, it was again, Domantas Sabonis just kind of rattling off another solid performance and some of the things that had happened. And but really, it was a solid win, and then they follow that up with that clunker in New Orleans, which I think tonight was obviously a much better effort. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but this is a stretch of 3 games in 4 nights, and I think when you look at it, you can, even if you're riding a win streak and feeling good and kind of rolling off some of the best basketball you've seen and a good closing effort and all these things, like it's interesting. It's fun to keep perspective a little bit and just notice that you can look at the schedule, circle a couple games throughout the course of the 82 game season and just go, that's a schedule loss. And I thought that's kind of what happened in New Orleans on the next night on Monday. But as far as what happened in Sunday, I didn't analyze that game terribly much. I just felt like that was about what I expected from the Kings. And when things are really rolling, even if they are shorthanded, things look pretty good.
Yeah, I think the only thing that really stood out to me as a negative, like I thought it was a fun game. It was
Yeah,
a good time to watch. And it was like a team that looks like it's ramping up and like heading somewhere. That's what I think. When you got done with that game, you're like, man, the Kings went into a game against 2 incredible shot makers. You sat there and watched them make shot after shot after shot, and still the Kings kept going. And they just kept, and they in the end, they ran them over. So I think the one thing that stood out was JaVale McGee clearly has he's not fully healed up over getting bought out and waived, or left out in the cold last year and then bought out and waived by the Mavericks. I thought that was like a very interesting and strange moment with him getting a technical and kind of losing his way a little bit in the game. And to be honest, I don't know how much JaVale's going to play now that we see Trey Lyles get back in the fold. But I don't know, we'll see. It's going to depend on how well he does play.
he was pretty good in that game overall. I think he was kind of a man on a mission in that one, right?
I don't know. We had that moment where he started dribbling the ball down the court. And I don't know about anyone else, but I think like everyone collectively in Sacramento was yelling, "Please pass the ball."
Right.
And then he
That's
didn't.
fine.
And then he passed it, but he passed it right to Luka's chest. Yeah, it was like, oh boy, like what is happening? What is happening? So, yeah, I mean, like when we get to the Pelicans game the next day, I think it's interesting that the Kings came out and played horrible, like flat out. Whatever it was, they look like the team that we saw get clubbed by the Houston Rockets earlier in the season. And De'Aaron Fox fell in love with a 3. I thought that was a huge issue. 2 of 12 from behind the arc, and just kept shooting. He wouldn't go into the paint. I thought that was weird. I thought Domantas Sabonis wasn't aggressive like we've seen for almost every other night this season. And they looked, not very good at all. And then Sean, I think the biggest issue that we have is going into halftime. It wasn't a blowout. It was, like a 14, 15 point
Sure.
game. But then you come out of halftime and there's no Keegan Murray.
Right.
And I think we're quickly learning that Keegan Murray might mean way more to this team than we thought. That when you're looking at you can't live without it. What would happen if Domantas Sabonis goes out for a long stretch? What would happen if De'Aaron Fox goes out for a long stretch. I think the Kings now have to really start thinking about what does it mean if Keegan Murray goes out, because he's become their best defender, and his defense on Brandon Ingram during the first half I thought was spectacular in that first game against the Pelicans. And then without him on the court, there's nothing the Kings could do to stop Ingram in the second half.
That is a Wednesday Thanksgiving overreaction.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. I
I
mean,
don't
it's
know.
still third on the list. Let's just be honest.
Well, no, he is. He's third.
It's, and again, I I'm not trying to, piss on that parade, but it's like Keegan has been nice. Yes, I think. I'm talking about defensively. Offensively, you know what he is. Obviously, he's going through some shooting struggles. It'll be interesting to find out if maybe this sore lower back might be related to maybe some of those shooting woes. How long it's been going on, who knows? But don't have the ability to talk to him at the moment while they're on this trip. And but from everything I've heard, it's very, very day to day, not the biggest thing in the world, and likely could play if we're talking playoffs or something like that. But the workload could be a little something. I think with him right now, while he's kind of going through a few things, it might be best to maybe give him a day or two off and see how things respond. It doesn't look like anything's going to be super serious. And what I'm trying to, keep things in perspective is him having this moment where he's looking like making great strides defensively. Yes, but I think more as time goes on over the next couple of weeks, and so I think you might see a little bit different result on that. I don't want anyone to just jump off. I mean, hey, I hope I'm wrong here. If he wants to be an all defensive player, fantastic. If he's able to be that guy, that'd be great. But I think it's a good idea to curb some of that enthusiasm a little bit, as there's more game tape of him kind of going up against some smaller players and kind of using his length. And I think that's a good thing, but I wouldn't call him the team's best defender yet. I think they'll get some scouting on that, and teams will be able to adjust a little bit. But certainly they could have used him tonight, particularly on the defensive end, especially when you're going up against a team like the Pelicans in both of these games. Because I felt, James, in that Monday game, even though it was a schedule loss, the thing I took from it is, once again, you resort back to some pretty bad habits when it comes to dealing with length and physicality. And over the course of these two games, and maybe the only other, I think I've only seen the Pelicans play two other games prior to this outside of just highlights. But that strikes me as a team that I have a little bit more respect for than I did maybe going in to this 2-game baseball series, as we like to call them. That's a team that if they can get their shit right, I don't know of many teams that would want to face a team like that in a 7-game series. And that's, of course, if they're healthy, obviously. But those bigs that they have, they kind of take it to you. I mean, they're a physical team. And we know how the Kings don't usually match up well against length and physicality. And you've got guys like Valanciunas and Zion Williamson, and Cody Zeller looked really good in the first game. He was. I didn't have that on my bingo card as somebody who I would be talking about in this podcast, but all three of those guys were disruptors. And there was some really positive signs with the way the Kings played against teams like the Thunder when they were at home. And then you followed that up against with the Cavaliers, and I thought they responded very, very well. This one was a bit different. And it's on the heels of even the Laker game and the Mavericks game, and we get it. But that one was one, if the scheduled losses, I was really looking to see how they'd come out tonight and respond. I thought they responded much, much, much better. Obviously, you still fall into a big hole, but having Trey Lyles back, in portions of tonight's game looked really, really encouraging.
Yeah, the Trey Lyles thing is, we're going to get to that a little bit later in the show. I think when he got signed, it was a lot of people were like, "Oh, good, Trey Lyles is back," but he's just kind of like a middle of the road rotational player. I don't know if he's a game changer. And then you watch him play, and you're like, you seem to forget how good he is in certain stretches. And so we'll get into that a little bit later, though. When it comes to the physicality and actually, you said something else there that caught my ear. You said, that Keegan Murray's going through some things, right? Like on the court, he's clearly going through some things. I find it interesting that this time last year, he did the same exact thing. Identical. In the month of November, he was absolutely horrible. Now, he had a personal issue with a grandmother who had some health problems. But in November, in 13 games last year, he averaged 8 points and 3.9 rebounds per game. He shot 33.9% from the field and 27% from three. And then December, he shot 46% from the field and 46.4 from three and averaged like almost 13 points and 3.5 rebounds. Like the change in him from 1 month to the next was huge. And so I wonder if there isn't something about him coming in, acclimating, and then trying to get his feet under him, and then kind of like going through some, just trying to get settled. Maybe he
Yeah.
is a guy who's going to be a slow starter throughout his career. I mean, there are guys that are like that throughout the league.
Well, and James,
But
too, it's also too like almost a year ago to the date. I think it was. I was just looking up the 16th last year is when he had his lower back problem. That had some lower back. So it was one game he missed was for lower back soreness, and incidentally, here he is almost a year later at the same time.
boy, that's
With
random.
similar soreness. Yeah, he only missed the one game, which was good. I mean, this one obviously is two right now, but you're doing so in a 3 games in 4 nights kind of a deal. So you obviously have another night or two to relax before going into Minnesota, but just interesting.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And the Minnesota game is turning out to be a really big game.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, it's an in-season tournament game. If the Kings want to make it to the quarterfinals, they want to make it to the next round. They need to pick up. Do the top 2 teams go, or just the top team?
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it's the wild card would be with the point differential, right?
Oh, got it. So it's
Yeah.
going to be the number 1 team is automatically through in as quarterfinal, which the Indiana Pacers, congratulations, are the first quarterfinalists. And then I think you have to get in if you're
Yeah,
not
so
in.
right now the Kings are atop the Group C, tied with the
Mhm.
Timberwolves, but they own the differential right now. So the next 2 games are going to be in season tournament games, both with the Timberwolves on Friday and then next Tuesday with the Warriors when they get Draymond Green back, and that'll be here in Sacramento on TNT. And
Oh,
yeah, those if they're gonna be players in this thing, this is where it is, and they kind of control their own destiny.
yeah. So hopefully Keegan Murray's available for those games because he is a guy that, like, whether he's hitting his shot or not, he's actually been pretty solid this year. And the Kings, they need everybody healthy, which seems to be weird. Like right now, they have a ton of like small injuries. It feels like the injuries are just kind of stacking up. So Chris Duarte was questionable with a hand injury. You had Sasha Vazenkov miss a game with a thumb injury. You had Kevin Herter's got a sprained index finger, which is an issue. So all of these things are like kind of telling you that like there's there's a lot of bumps and bruises going on. Keon Ellis rolled his ankle. Forgot about him. Alex Len is out for 6 to 8 weeks with an ankle sprain. So this is one of those things where you're getting hit with a little bit of adversity early in the season. You just came off a 6-game win streak. I think the last thing you want to do is back that up with a 2 or 3 or 4-game losing streak. Their schedule gets a lot more difficult after these next 2 games too, and you don't want this thing to snowball a little bit. But Sean, how do you think that they've dealt so far with the adversity of missing players here and there? And it seems like they're all grouped up together in this like last week period.
Yeah. Well, I think honestly it starts with Fox, and they got through that period, and then in the midst of having more injuries once they get him back, they rattle off 6 straight wins. And so such as life when you're a Kings fan, and you know live with the highs and lows. It's a roller coaster, and it's funny how, especially with this team, how they can look so great within that 6-game stretch and then follow it up with a clunker. And like tonight didn't. I'd say the second game with the Pelicans didn't bother me. I mean, neither one of these games really bothered me that much. But there's a lot of encouraging signs that they can take from it. Winning on the road is very, very difficult. We've talked about that. Obviously, these baseball series are a little weird for road teams at times. I think I think tonight is a little bit more indicative of what the Kings should look like on a night in, night out basis. But you're going to go through these stretches. I think one of the things I would take away most is seeing this in a 10-game stretch of games is, they kind of live and die by the three. And I think I've seen some of the comments here already in the chat on YouTube, but finding ways to dig themselves out of holes. Obviously the 3-point shoot, the 3-point shot's going to be there for them more times than not, but I don't like to see the live and die by the three so much. I mean, it seems like they can kind of take what's allowed to them, but that's part of what the Pelicans were doing. Pelicans were daring them to take shots in both of these games. There's
especially on Monday.
Yeah, and obviously, especially if you're on the second night of a back-to-back, that's not a bad philosophy or strategy to go against Sacramento. But I sometimes wish that in really critiquing the team and my own personal biases, I'd like to see them kind of look for more opportunities when the three isn't falling and maybe do a little something different. But credit to them, I guess they know who they are and they're going to stick with it.
Yeah, I did not in all honesty, watching De'Aaron Fox just step back and shoot the three ball again and again. He also, it feels like he was so good against Dallas, and he got up to like 41.7% from three in that game, I believe, after that game. But it looks like all of a sudden he's doing something different with his feet, and like mechanically he's doing something slightly different, and it was like, whoa, that's weird. He's staggering his feet. It's something that I've seen him do in the past, but like I think he's made some sort of weird adjustment that maybe he doesn't even know he made, and it's like he's just not as accurate. And when he's having those issues, like I don't want to see him like 2 for 12 is a lot. Like I'm okay with De'Aaron Fox shooting 8.6 threes a game, but what I don't think any of us want to see is for him to shoot 12 threes when he's only hitting 2. Like you got to pull back at some point, and you also, for him, he needs to get to the key. I mean, he needs to create for others. He needs to. That's how the Kings' offense is predicated. And I get it. It looked like that New Orleans was just like camping in the lane and blocking everything off, so Sabonis couldn't do his typical stuff, especially in the first game. But both of those guys, they need to like almost have mental resets and say, okay, like how are we going to figure this out? Because what we're doing right now isn't working. And
James, was it identical, his 3-point shot, 2 of 12 each night, both Wednesday and Monday against the Pelicans?
No.
Did Wednesday I have that right?
No, Wednesday was he was much
7
2 of 7. Yeah, and 7, one of them was late. And even like I mean, I don't want to dive into the game all that much because, it was I think it was a good hard fought loss that had a bunch of weirdness to it, but even the last couple of seconds of the game were just like, what are you doing? Like you're down 5 and you got 16 seconds and you took 12 seconds to get a shot up. Like very, very strange what was happening. But there's something about Fox like falling in love with the three. It's something that, they can't have. If he's hitting, that's fine, but they still need the guy who's busting down, getting into the key and even hitting the floater. We haven't seen a lot of mid-range from him early in the season, which I think is strange because he lived in the mid-range last year. But the three is falling, and it was falling before this game. So maybe he just has a lot of confidence in it right now, and that's kind of where he's going.
I think that's also a tribute, credit New Orleans. I mean, they took that away from him a lot. They were daring him to shoot. They wanted him to shoot threes and take away the mid range. And when you've got some bodies the way they do, he doesn't want to be any part of anywhere near some of those guys.
No, that's true. Well, like we talked about it on the show today with me and Kyle, and on Tuesday we talked about it. Like somebody's got to step in and take a charge against Zion. You can't let a guy.
Trey Lyles tried to.
Yeah, well, and Davion did too. But you can't just sit there and let a guy do left-handed layup after left-handed layup for like 20 minutes straight. Like
By the way, he
that
looks
just
really good.
he does look really good. I mean, good for him. I hope
Yeah,
that this is something that he can piece together. I mean, the game is better when young star level players are healthy and you actually get to see them play. A lot of Kings fans out there want to like they would rather not see him. But as far
sure.
as the league goes as a whole, like this is a guy who's got a lot of talent. Sean, before we get too deep into this thing, I just want to do our spiel about prize picks. I make my picks every single game, and
Yeah, you do.
I'm really bad at it still. It doesn't matter what I do, it doesn't work out. I thought I was playing it pretty safe. I went to the Harrison Barnes card the last two games, and Harrison Barnes actually played really well, and you could see him building a little bit, and we'll get to that later. But uh, it's I was right there. But I was wrong on so many other things, which seems to be what I'm doing just about every single game when I'm playing Prize Picks. But the one cool
But you're
thing
having
about
fun.
I am having a good time. It's adding to the evening. I love when people send me their Prize Picks. I think it's really cool. And then like even for tomorrow, I know that Prize Picks had what I kind of dig is that you can do a football and basketball like mix and match. For Monday's game, I think I chose they had Christian McCaffrey on Thanksgiving. But it was like a 99% off. So I was able to get all he has to do is either rush or receive for 1 yard, and I get a win on that. But then you just pair that with other things. So I think it's kind of cool to be able to pair basketball, football during baseball season. You can do that as well. There might be hockey on there, but I don't ever watch hockey, and I wouldn't have any idea. I just know that the Sharks keep giving up too many goals
You
because I
might
didn't
be
know.
really good at the hockey prize picks.
Oh, really? I don't
See where
know.
I'm going?
Yeah, because I'm not good at what I'm
I just
doing right
killed
now.
James.
Yeah. Well, I've been sick since like Thursday.
Mm.
So I've had a cold. Luckily I'm getting through it and should be fine for Thanksgiving tomorrow. Yeah, so anyway, if you're interested in Price Picks, there's a link down below in the podcast description. Go down there. Go to Price Picks. It's actually linked specifically for the Kings Beat. I don't know if you're a first time user, I'm sure you get some sort of bonus for signing up under that link and have fun, play responsibly. But again, I think it's a cool way to add to your viewing enjoyment. And Sean, I was bringing something up there, like during the middle of that. It's that Harrison Barnes all of a sudden is looking a little bit more and more like Harrison Barnes each and every night.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that I'll continue to point out is that Harrison Barnes is like the fifth option on this team and with the starting group. And even I'd even say, Sean, it's possible he might even be more like the sixth option because when you go to the bench with Malik Monk steps in and is instantly an option well before he is as well. But it seems like he's starting to figure out how to live within that, and it doesn't hurt that guys like Kevin Herter have gone out for a game, Keegan Murray goes out for a game, and he's getting a little bit more of like the DHO action at the top of the key. And I think he's played really well within the two-man game with Domas, and he looks a lot like himself. It's just that the Kings don't really need him to be a number three or a number four option right now because you got Kevin Herter playing well and you're trying to bring Keegan Murray along. Am I crazy in thinking that this might just be like the natural progression of Harrison Barnes's career as a Sacramento King, that he's just slowly sliding down the pecking order? And it doesn't mean that he's not a good ball player. It just means that his opportunity might not be there as much as it was before.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate part about Harrison Barnes is he's he's judged a lot by fans and media by his scoring, whether he scores or he doesn't score, and that's just it's unfair because that's not really the position he's put in for this team. It's fun to see every game, and this dates back for a few seasons now. But every game they try to get him early touches and early shots at the ball, or at the early shots in that opening quarter in that first few minutes of action, um, and that's always by design. But his role is different than being a scorer. But tonight, when you were down somebody like Keegan Murray, um, they need him to contribute more than that. And he did. He goes off with 22. I think a more indicative performance of or a more desirable performance of Harrison Barnes now, if they're fully healthy, is kind of like what you saw in a stat line from the blowout on Monday, where he's big on the boards. He's got 6 assists. The spacing obviously is still there. Defensively, he either sometimes has it or he doesn't. At the end of seasons, sometimes the stats aren't too kind to him. But again, it's what he provides with the length, the spacing, and if he can impact the game in different ways, that's usually where he's at this point. But when you're down someone like Keegan Murray, Kevin Herter at times, De'Aaron Fox, obviously early in the season, that's when you want to see Harrison Barnes get that moment and recognize the moment that, yes, I need to contribute now and score. And so I'm with you. I think this is just, you talked about natural progression. There's a lot of really good teams that have a fifth their fifth starter, and that person doesn't sometimes play 20 minutes a game. Sometimes that person doesn't contribute all that much in the box score when it comes to scoring, but they're integral for what they want to do for the success of the team. And I think that's kind of where Harrison's at right now. I've always looked at Harrison and Keegan, and looking at Keegan and whether or not he's playing the 3 or the 4, he's now the succession. Like um, he will be able to take over Harrison's role at some point, and you know, he probably is already at that point. I think there might be some people within the walls that might think he's not quite there yet, to where you can have that expectation of being that guy every single night, and that's why Harrison is still a necessary evil for the critics of Harrison Barnes. But yeah, I think he's going to be in a moment where there is a little bit of figuring out. I think, again, not having De'Aaron Fox usually finds Harrison Barnes a lot more. So when you didn't have those games with Fox, Harrison wasn't as impactful. I think now that Fox is back on the floor, him and Harrison will have that kind of familiarity, and you'll see a better version of Barnes. But he was great tonight. I think he was decent. He certainly wasn't the worst player on the floor on Monday, and I think he's trending the right way. I think he's just an easy target when you look at the box score at the end of the night, and you don't see a lot of shots from him. You don't see the scoring, and people try to pick that apart. Not everyone can score 20.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think we're at a point right now too where people are ignoring the fact that he's been really good defensively, or at least he's been even Steven defensively. So he's not a stopper. I'm not saying that, but like on the season, he's a negative zero point 0.7. So defensive, players are shooting 47.7% from the field against him versus 48.4% normally. 3%, 3-pointers, he's given up a little bit, but 2-pointers, he's a negative 3.7% on the season. He's actually been really strong. And, that's with him even having to go up and kind of be a sacrificial lamb against some of these big time scores. There is not a world in which, Harrison Barnes should be defending um, Zion Williamson for like a huge percentage of a game. There's just not. But that's the way it goes. There's also not a world where he should be defending Victor Wembanyama for a huge percentage of a basketball game. But that's what you need him to do. And so I think, there have been a couple of games where, especially kind of circle the Jeremy Grant game where Harrison Barnes just got lit up. But it's not like he was playing bad defense. Jeremy Grant just got hot. And if you look at his numbers still, even counting that game, and even though we're only 14 games into the season, like he still held his own quite a bit. So I would say, like, look, this is a 30-minute per game guy. He is, I don't think he's like on the decline as far as physically, but I think he is on the decline as far as what his role is with the team. And I think at the end of the day, Harrison Barnes would acknowledge that. and it's probably not a bad thing because it allows him to, maybe play the game a few more years than if he was having to be a third or fourth option on this team. And I'd also point out, like, his usage on the season, like, he's not getting the ball at all. So,
Right.
like that, it's just not happening. So his advanced numbers, his usage is down to 14.3, which is by far the lowest of his entire career, including, the first 4 years of his career where he was a member of the Golden State Warriors and, with a whole bunch of Hall of Famers. So I think it's just the way that it's going with him. But like, look, I'm okay what he's doing right now on the court. I think you don't have to worry about that position. He can give you 30 minutes. He can give you 35 minutes if you need it. And you don't really notice the negative. He just kind of like keeps it. He's a league average player. And it's hard to find a league average player that can play 30 plus minutes a night like he's doing. Even like if you want to compare him like a Robert Covington or like what you were saying like earlier, there's a bunch of players who play, like think of Matisse Thybulle just as a
Right.
specialty player, um, starting for Philadelphia, or PJ Tucker. There are a lot of guys like this in the league who give you absolutely nothing on the offensive end, and that's just not what Harrison Barnes is. But he is transitioning to a different type of role with the team.
And the
Um,
fact that he's capable, James, I mean, you just look at tonight, it's a meaningful basketball game. Not to say that, not what I mean by that is it's not a, 40-point blowout, 30-point blowout like Monday was. And he's having to play a specific role with Keegan out, and it changes a little bit. They're going to be looking for him and needing more of his offensive games. This is when he is able to do that. Now, if you have your whole collective group there, and you're expecting, you've got Keegan more, who's more of a shooter, and obviously Mike Brown is telling him to launch it pretty much every time he touches the ball. That limits the touches that you're going to get, but he's still respected enough by other teams where you're not just leaving Harrison Barnes in the corner or on the perimeter. And he's still really good at getting to the free throw line, even still. So, like I said, he can be an easy target, but at the same time, it's like he serves a very specific purpose. And all you have to do is listen to Mike Brown when he's talking about Harrison Barnes. I mean, he's a key ingredient to their success. There's a reason this team wanted him back. And I guess there's
yeah.
always someone, right?
Well, and I'd also tell you, if you ask the players,
Right.
everyone wants him back. Like, everyone wanted him back, and like they're happy that he is back. Um, let's get to Trey Lyles. For me, like, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting all season long for Trey Lyles to be able to step back on the floor. It's kind of been a weird thing where he strained a calf muscle right at the end of training camp, right before a preseason game. Like, he was playing and then he wasn't. And next thing you know, like, this thing kind of snowballed. And we've watched him get back on the court maybe like 3 weeks ago. And I was surprised it still took this long, although, that's kudos to the Kings medical staff, because um, there's nothing you can do about someone getting a jam finger or uh, a sore thumb, which is what we've been seeing over the last week with a bunch of these players. There's really not even anything you can do about a guy like Keon Ellis, like stepping on a guy's foot and rolling his ankle really bad, or Alex Len having a moment where he gets rolled up by Karis LeVert. But with Trey Lyles, this is a different type of situation where the calf muscle is so incredibly crucial to an NBA player. And I think they did right by him every step of the way here. The fact that he had to sit for like a month, that happens sometimes, right? And I also think that when you watched him play, he looked rough in the first quarter, his first go around. But when he settled into the game, you instantly remembered just how good Trey Lyles was for this team last year. And again, Harrison Barnes finished with 22 points in the loss on Wednesday night, but I remember Trey Lyles way more than I remember Harrison Barnes. Does that make sense? And it's
Well,
typically like
is that
Malik
because you
Monk
hadn't
that we
seen him in a
feel it.
while? Is that because you hadn't seen him in a while?
No, it's because he had 10 points in the first like 3 minutes of the fourth quarter.
Right.
It was like boom, boom, boom. And that's when you start to realize like how much he can mean to this team. Sean, just what do you think his long term, like, what is this going to mean for Mike Brown getting Trey Lyles back in the fold? Because I think it's pretty substantial.
Well, it's purely dependent upon what Trey Lyles you're getting. I mean, tonight I think it was good, especially I actually kind of like the fact that Mike Brown got a Trey Lyles player back that he didn't have to like, all right, let's ease him out there, see how it goes. Like, no, there was no training wheels. It was go for it, play like you're in March right now, and see if you can replicate what you were last season. I like to remind people a lot that Trey Lyles really went through some times last year. You know, you had good
Yeah.
and bad, and it didn't start off very good at all. He was really kind of in the doghouse, and so um, it's good to have that perspective and keep that in mind as the season unfolds, because a lot can change. And right now, I think, tonight was a really good starting point for him. I like the fact that um, that he was out there looking to take charges and um, try to be a physical presence against a physical team, because that's one of the things, like, we talk about it a lot. That's one of the things that this team can struggle with and really needs somebody like him to be a presence out there, not just again from a scoring or a shooting standpoint, but when he's out there and he's able to provide that presence and still also, keep the pace running. And I thought he was moving well. Yeah, I mean, what he finished tonight, 4 of 8, 3 of 7 from beyond the arc, 8 rebounds, all doing all that in 28 minutes of action. I thought it was a very, very encouraging sign.
I was gonna like, did it shock you that he played 28 minutes?
A little bit, but that's only because, James, I didn't think that when they got him back, particularly with a calf. I mean, it's different than a foot. Um, or even a lower back, or obviously all these finger and ankle injuries.
Yeah.
I thought that might be an injury, especially for him, who's a bigger guy. I thought that might be something where they slowly ease him in, and they didn't do that. And I think that's maybe why you didn't see him maybe as early as last week or even over the weekend, getting him to where he can come in and contribute right away, go 5-on-5 the night before, stuff like that. I think is good. So yeah, it surprised me a little bit, but the production actually surprised me even more over the course of that 28 minutes.
Yeah, I totally agree. And here's what I like about what Trey Lyles, like from here on out. I mean, I think Sean, you and I both, when they signed JaVale McGee, we're like, okay, that's your third center, your fourth center. Like, it didn't really matter all that much. But all of a sudden, JaVale McGee has been forced into action, probably more than what you and I expected, but also more than maybe what Mike Brown expected because of the Trey Lyles situation. So I like what the Kings are packed with multi-positional players, right? You can go down the list, and I can only circle like three guys who aren't truly multi-positional players. And that's JaVale McGee, Alex Len, and Davion Mitchell. And the fact that you're getting a guy who can play the 4 and the 5, can even defend a little bit at the 3 here and there, not all the time, but like if he's caught on a switch, you don't think, oh no, it's all over, right? This is a big deal because we've been kind of waiting for the Kings to be able to crank their offense up all the way, and they've been missing a small ball 5. And I think that this team with Trey Lyles, with, again, you can have him play with Sasha, you can have him play with Keegan, you can have him play with Harrison Barnes. Or you can put him at the 4. Like tonight, we saw him play a bunch alongside Demonis Sabonis. I think this is just a weapon that the Kings needed really badly. And what that means for JaVale McGee, I have no idea. Like, I'm not putting anything past Mike Brown. Mike Brown he's going to do whatever he thinks best for the team. And to be honest with you, his win percentage is a whole hell of a lot better than my win percentage as an NBA head coach. So I'm going to like let him do what he's going to do because I think he knows what he's doing. But that doesn't change the fact that this this can really be a dynamic that changes things. Like having a guy that you can put on the floor that can shoot the ball, that can pass the ball, that can rebound, that can score in the post. Like Trey Lyles brings a lot to the table, and his versatility as a player to me really changes a lot of things. So I'm excited to see what this looks like in like a week or two
Right.
weeks when he's 100% and you're kind of flowing. And if you have a tall guy you're going up against and you need a JaVale McGee, that's fine. But a lot of nights, I think I would rather have if someone's going to lose their minutes, um, the Sasha Vezenkov, JaVale McGee tandem might be the first place that I start taking minutes from, especially if Chris Duarte is going to start improving, right? So,
Yeah.
because you can't play all these guys, you just
No, you
can't.
can't. And it's going to be, it's going to be musical chairs. Davion gets a lot of heat on social media and including in this chat and YouTube at the moment. But things, like I said, things change very, very quickly. Davion is experiencing what Trey Lyles experienced last year at this time, right around this time of season. So, you might be talking about Davion Mitchell later this season, like we are talking about Trey Lyles, and we might see Trey Lyles go the other way. That's why you've got this depth. And I think ultimately, James, something like a team like tonight in the Pelicans, this is a night where on both of those occasions you would have used JaVale McGee. Dallas, maybe probably not, but obviously there were circumstances there. And of course you're still down Alex Len and Trey Lyles at that point, but given your full complement of players, would you have seen JaVale McGee if that was, the Mavericks and there wasn't the history of giving him an opportunity to kind of stick it to his former team a little bit? Probably not. Like that would have been a game where probably JaVale might not see action unless it's a blowout situation late. Or even maybe just 3 minutes at different points of the half. But I think as long as Trey Lyles fills that role well, like he did to close last season, things ought to be good. And the Kings believe that because by virtue of them giving him a contract. So
2-year, $16 million deal. Yeah.
right. So there is a belief in him, but in my opinion, I think they are situated well that if Trey Lyles isn't playing well, well, then they can go to other places and they can tinker a little bit. But that to me is a lot more scary than having a reliable Trey Lyles. And again, when it comes to JaVale McGee, he's just a guy that, and I've said it since he got here, like I don't envision him being an everyday player, a rotational player. I think it's going to be circumstantial and situational depending upon who you're going up against night in, night out. Sasha's different to me though. Sasha's the one to me where, if Trey Lyles is playing well, I still feel there is a fit for Sasha. But that Mike Brown has talked about it over the past couple weeks at nauseum, where it's like his job is going to be very difficult in trying to find time for so many of these guys. I mean, obviously, Fox, Sabonis, Monk. I mean, that's basically where your bulk minutes are going to come from for the most part, and then everything outside of that is where things get fun for him.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. It's not, especially again if Chris Duarte is going to bring the energy, if he's going to hit his 3-point shots, man, he's really good when his feet are set.
Yeah.
Like if he just takes a breath and is a catch and shoot 3-point shooter, he's really, really good. He's got a clean shot. So I've been hard on him because of the fouls, but I also think that we got to see we got to see Chris Duarte go out there and play a bunch of minutes and kind of get his sea legs. It was a good thing for him to play in a game where Kevin Huerter wasn't there, which is what Sunday, right? I thought, letting him like ease his way into a game, hit a couple of shots, build some confidence, and then not feel like he's got to come in and make an instant impact. He just calmed down. And I think again, in the Dallas game, he played 33 minutes. I think he had 3 fouls in 33, 34 minutes. That's what you're looking for. Like when he does need to step up and do that, it's kind of big. So that's where I think, some of these other guys, like it might be difficult. Like I do like what Sasha brings to the table when he's hitting his shots. He's fun. There's fun moments with him. He's smart. He even had a block on Brandon Ingram tonight. He had a huge block the other night. I can't remember which game it was. Oh, it had to be the Dallas game. But he got a block that you're like, where did that come from? So yeah, he does little things that just tells you he's a smart player.
Well, and Duarte too, kind of have to give him some flowers too a little bit. I'm not, me, I'm not the biggest plus minus guy, and they lost tonight, but a plus 22 in a starting role. He was bringing it, man. He was physical, running the floor well. He kept the fouling thing is always, I feel, going to be there. He obviously with 5 fouls in this game, but he's showing a lot of positive signs, and I think this comes at the right time where obviously Davion is back in the lineup only because of absences at the moment. But if you're Mike Brown and you go back to Davion getting out of the rotation, that's how fragile things are, because things can change quickly. When you've got Keon Ellis, when he's in the rotation, they haven't lost. Like they're still on that win streak. He hurts his ankle, they lose, or he hurts the ankle. He doesn't play the past 2 games, injures it in the Mavericks game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they still haven't lost when he's played, in that high rotation game. So if you're Mike Brown, you have to reward that, and that's when you're kind of, the old saying from Bull Durham, you don't F with a winning streak, and you continue to roll, you continue to play. This now creates an opportunity for Davion. What happens when Keon Ellis comes back? How many games does he miss? We'll see what that looks like.
I have a tough time seeing Mike Brown just doing knee-jerk reaction things. And if Davion settles in and starts playing well,
Right.
like I think he's going to get an opportunity to hold on to the job.
For
And
sure.
then if he's not, and you need to come back to Keon and you need that energy, I mean, we can't act like that Keon is just playing so incredibly that you got to have him out there. You're right; they went on a win streak, and that's great. But the fact is, like, he's not averaging anything. As a starter, he's in the minutes he's getting, he's just not hitting his shots at a high clip. He's not making a huge impact. But I do think he's impactful in the energy that he brings and the effort and the defensive prowess that he has. So, like, I don't want to take anything away from.
Yeah, and part of it too, the message to him is stop dribbling the air out of the basketball. Like you got to move that ball. You got to pick up the pace and you got to sling it. And I think he's done better of that from what I've seen when he has his small minutes. He only played 10 tonight, but the dribbling the hell out of the basketball is going to bite him really, and that's one of the things they're on him about. Oh, did we lose James? Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. I think we might have lost James. What do they call that? Frozen ham? Frozen ham right before Thanksgiving. I'm going to be here for a while. Let's try and answer any questions, although I don't see any questions, but let's see what you have any in this chat. Got a lot of stuff here. Mark Wong wants to start Trey at the 4. Keegan can play the 3 and let Barnes bully ball the bench players. I don't think Harrison Barnes really bully balls anybody. You disagree, Mark? Let me know. Because I don't. Oh, this is fun. I've got different windows here. I better slide over here because I am not James Ham, and that is bad karma if I do. So James will be back in a minute. Brendan, by the way, left us tonight. Must be traveling for holidays. James is back. Oh, no, he's back. Let's not talk about him anymore. I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
My face got really big on this screen. Meg knows what I'm talking about. I had both pictures here, and I slid far left so I could get out of your box because that's your box.
Oh, you're like right in the middle. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Did we talk about where Brennan was, by the way? Because I was talking to the people here and wasn't sure if we talked about where Brennan was. I think he's traveling for the holidays, possibly.
We think he's traveling. We haven't heard from Brendan. So Brennan's MIA. It's okay.
We got to put up the bat signal.
Yeah, we do. We have to put up the bat signal and hope that Brendan finds us. Yeah, every once in a while, you got to miss a pod. It happens. And while we're at that, hey, if you're sitting here, we would love it if you hit the thumbs up. That helps the algorithm of life. But
how
also,
many we got?
I have no idea because if I do
41.
that, then that's not enough. Come on, people.
No. But you know what? We haven't been very likable yet. Not too likable yet. I think people are just waiting to get their likes. They're just waiting for us to do something they like.
It's the all crowd tonight, so that's okay. I mean, we got a holiday tomorrow. We needed to get a pod in. We definitely wanted to make sure that we invited everybody in to hang out with us.
What's the spread looking like tomorrow?
Did you freeze again? Yeah, we've talked about this in the past.
James is losing. We're losing James. We're losing James.
We're losing me again.
Yeah, you're
Like
very pixelated.
on internet. Oh yeah, I'm
People
like
must be
fading in and
streaming
out.
the hell out
That's
of stuff
bizarre.
up there.
Well, I'm on my phone.
It's okay.
Oh, it's not great. I apologize everybody for bad Wi-Fi. Yeah, so like my wife and I both are from divorced parents. So we have to like manage holidays like Thanksgiving. So in the morning we go to my mom's house and hang out with my family, which is I have a big family. And then we eat around 2 o'clock, and then we go
Why?
to my in-laws' house and we eat again. So, and
It's
my dad
crazy.
goes to that. My dad goes to that thing. So anyway, yeah, so I have to eat a lot on Thanksgiving. It's sort of like a whole day thing. I don't cook at all for Thanksgiving. I will make a charcuterie board, which will
That's
be
fun.
beautiful and amazing. But I don't cook on Thanksgiving. I do cook for Christmas. We won't travel for Christmas.
I hope
Um,
you clean up. I hope you help clean up if you're not cooking and helping out in the kitchen.
No, so at my mom's house, I leave before that happens, and then at my mother-in-law's house, there's football to be watched, so, like, there's nothing I can do about it, Sean.
I got
So,
you.
I would like to tell
I've
you
never.
I have children, they can help clean up.
I've told you before, I've never understood, and again, you've outlined a scenario where it makes sense because you're doing 2 dinners, so good for you, I guess, but these people who do the early, like, dinner time for Thanksgiving meals at, like, 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, like, what are we doing? It's not dinner time yet. I don't
Well, I
understand
think,
that.
like, my
Eat at
mom's house,
6.
they do it because me and my wife we gotta go. Like,
Right.
that's, like, been a known thing, so yeah, when we had our boys, we told everybody, "Hey, we're not traveling." That's the rules. We don't
Gotcha.
travel for Christmas. For Thanksgiving, we'll travel. For Easter, all that stuff, we travel, but for Christmas, we won't. So anyway, um,
Turkey talk.
turkey talk. Where are you going, Sean?
Got a lot of family. I'll be in the Elk Grove area. That'll be fun. And, I have a sneaking suspicion, although I haven't checked in. I don't think for whatever reason my stupid family likes to do to appease one person, I don't think they're making a turkey, and that just pisses me off.
Why don't you just make your own turkey and bring it and like
Well,
just
I I could, but um that would I don't know. First of all, have you ever made a turkey? It's really gross.
yes, I've made a
I should
turkey.
just go get a catered one, but if someone could prepare it, I'll take it the rest of the way.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I'm a little
told you like
grossed out by
I make
turkey.
prime rib for Christmas and it's just incredible and it's so
There you
simple.
go.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Um,
Look at that. Nap at 2 or eat at 2, nap from 3 to 5, eat again at 6. These people have it figured out. I don't see I
See,
don't see that I can't do that.
that's kind of what I do. Yeah.
All right.
Yes. So first of all, Brad, in the chat, I do have a giant cup. Um, I do have a giant cup.
Wow. Okay.
It's huge. It's like a double-sized cup. But I figured like we're gonna podcast, so I needed to have plenty of hot tea because my throat is trashed from being sick all week, from having like a cold. Nothing major. Let's get to some questions from the chat. Let's see. Victor, if the Kings were to make a trade for either Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, or Najee Marshall instead of a big name, would you guys like that move? Um,
More. Would
would
you
you
like
like
that
that
more?
more? Um,
I guess it depends on what the big move would have been, but yeah, certainly some of those guys could fit a role on this team for sure.
yeah. I like all of those guys, especially Herb Jones. I think Herb Jones is super fun. But talk about an inconsistent scorer. So he torched the Kings for like 18 the first night and then 7 the next night. Like
Don't need
that's
him to
kind of
score.
well, no, you don't. And that's what we are talking about with, people get upset when Harrison Barnes doesn't score.
Yeah.
Like Herb doesn't have that 22-point game in him or the 32-point game that Harrison Barnes has hiding in his back pocket. He's not the same type of like long athletic defender, multi-positional guy. Well, as far as a like crazy multi-positional defender. I mean, Herb Jones defended De'Aaron Fox for times during this game. But yeah, I like all those guys. And actually, to be honest, I really like what New Orleans done. Like that, I think they've done a really good job of building that team. I like Dyson Daniels. I think he's going to develop and be a really solid player. Um, I don't know how long Valanciunas is going to keep playing, but he's a guy who you even have to like him, especially with how often Zion Williamson misses games. They got a lot of talent. They just have a lot of injury issues. They just got Alvarado back, and I thought he was good. Um, he's frustrating because it's like, why are people not that he really shines a light on a team that's not communicating well as far as Alvarado. Like if you're not communicating well, he's going to steal the ball from you all the time.
Oh yeah. He's a disruptor. He's got a little, and I mean this as a compliment. There's gonna be people that think I mean negatively. He's got a little Dylan Brooks in him, and I like it. I like it. I think every team needs one like that.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, what else do we got for questions? Russell Hunt, should the Kings make a move? I think you keep everyone and figure it out. Just would hate to give up a lot.
I'm not laughing at you, Russell, but I'm reminded of the question that James threw out to end the last podcast, which was, should the Kings make a move? And it's just like throws it out there, has nothing like tangible, nothing like, should they trade this person? Should they acquire this person? Should they do that? It's just the should they make a move? It's like, well, no.
That was the business of basketball. I'm trying to think. There was some reason I asked that question.
Because of probably the Zach LaVine rumors, and I think it got into
Alex
Caruso talk as well. And again, I mean, look, you're not really going to see any moves, any substantial move, I guess I'll say, before Christmas. That's not typically how things work.
Yeah.
So yeah, every team's waiting to get like 20, 25 games into the season to see entirely have a true sample size of really what they need. Now, if something happens to be, there are anomalies to that, and you can find some evidence sometimes where moves are made, but by and large, most teams are going to wait until they get through Christmas to see what their teams look like. So I would say no, I don't think this team needs to make a move. And I hear you, Russell. I think at the part where you're talking about where there's, hate to give up a lot for something. I know people really like this team as is. And they finished third in the West last year. They're, primed pretty well to have a nice run this year as well. So, but I think this team does need upgrades at positions, and they have the ability to do it. So I think they'll be very, very aggressive. They're going to attach their names to everything, and doesn't mean that there's a move that gets made, but ultimately if a move does not get made, it's not going to be for lack of trying.
I would agree with everything Sean said. I think
Thanks,
that,
man.
Again, when you look at the way that they're built right now, there is potential. They have movable pieces. They have players who are under contract, players whose contracts are right around 11, 12, 13% of the salary cap. Those are good contracts to have because they're easily moved. Plus, if you stack one or two of them together, all of a sudden you get to a much larger number. So you could take on a bigger piece. I think that there are teams that are looking to like kind of find their way. The Kings are in a position where I think that they are a contender in the Western Conference, but for a home court advantage first round. I think that they can get to the second round, but I'm not sure that they can get to the Western Conference Finals, and I'm not sure that they can get to the finals. And I'm not sure if they got to the finals if they could win the finals. They could prove me wrong every step of the way. I think they still need that one more higher end piece that everyone knows has been like there's been a question mark about whether you can find a better version of this or that. So always keep an eye on Toronto. Is what I talk about all the time. And Sean and I debate. I think this would probably be a better debate, Sean. If you had your choice, who would you take, OG Anunoby, or would you take Pascal Siakam?
Well, yeah, at this point, I mean, talent for talent, yes, I'd want Pascal Siakam, but he's an unrestricted free agent. So you're always trying to talk about what your future looks like. And
what
I think
both of them are. I mean,
to a degree, yeah. I mean,
OG can opt out.
Right. And I think because of that, there are things you're willing to move. There are pieces that you're willing to give up to make a swing like that. But I think talent for talent, to me, it's Pascal Siakam. But with knowing that one can opt out and you can likely have a nice little payday due for somebody, I think OG Anunoby addresses a lot of needs that this Kings team has, particularly on the defensive end. So it's a nice problem to have. Like whichever one I'd tell them, it's like, hey, whichever one you don't want, we'll take. In Sacramento, that's kind of the philosophy I think the front office should have, because I think either one of them would help them immensely.
I totally agree. Again, that either one of them are great. I've always leaned more towards OG Anunoby because he's a little bit younger,
Sure.
but I also think that Pascal Siakam, his passing ability, the second that you would always be able to run the same offense, regardless. You can, whether Sabonis is on the floor or not. And if you had a stretch where Sabonis was out, he would step into Sabonis' role. And while I don't think he's as good a passer as Sabonis, I still think you could run your offense and he would actually be really good. So I do think that he would work. But again, I heard something the other day that, according to someone who is around the team up in Toronto, that he was willing to sign like an extension, like with the max, but not a
Sure.
super max or not push for more. And they turned that down. And so there's a lot of people who think that he will leave as an unrestricted free agent this summer. I would say the same thing about OG Anunoby. OG has a like $19.6 million player option. There's no way he's playing for 19.6 next year. He's going to play for a lot more than that.
Yeah.
So if you could get your hands on them, then you have the ability to sign them using Larry Bird rights. Where if the Kings go into free agency, they won't be able to sign either one of those guys. There's no way they can do it. A true
Well,
sign
dude.
and trade doesn't happen anymore.
And then yeah, but even right around the time of the trade deadline, right?
Yeah.
Not talking about sign and trades, but it'll be interesting to see if there are teams out there that are needing that quote unquote savior season type of move,
hmm
or how desperate is a team to uh, really flip the switch and go after, try to make this big push, almost like a baseball trade deadline, if you will.
Yeah.
Because last year the Kings showed really great restraint, right? The big picture of things was, you're kind of playing with the house money, so to speak, and you did really well, and you didn't have to really sacrifice much. Get into the playoffs, see where the chips fall where they may. Will that philosophy be the same philosophy this year if you're showing a similar record going into the trade deadline? I think they might be a little bit more aggressive this time.
Yeah. I think either way, I mean, it's a difficult thing to do to go into it, to make a big trade. Like, it's not easy, and most of these players that we're talking about, I think OG is the one exception, whereas his contract is actually reasonable. It's almost identical to what Sabonis's contract was, when he was traded to the Kings. But that's what you're kinda looking for. These trades are really hard to pull off for, like, all the Zach LaVine talk. Zach LaVine is owed so much money that it's almost impossible to see him traded. Like, for a team to make a trade for him mid-season is gonna cost you, like, 4 players. That's just, like, nearly impossible unless you had somebody else that was like him that you wanted to swap him out for. So, again, I'm not saying, like, Zach LaVine, I wouldn't touch Zach LaVine with a 10-foot pole. I just don't think he gets you the wins and stuff that you want. Sean, do we have what kinda contest we wanna do to give away a free year membership to the Kings Beat?
You put me on the spot there. I'm not so sure. How about do we make it Kings related? Do you want to do a trivia? Do you want to do, let's see, do you want to do it pop culture? I'm kind of game for anything really. What was the best
Um
question we had? Was there I mean, shoot, all these people they're all pretty much subscribed, yeah?
I don't know. I mean, these are people who are subscribed to the channel, but not that aren't
Oh,
premium
gotcha.
subscribers.
Gotcha.
So, I don't know. Turkey is
It's good
mid. We could
stocking
just give it
stuffer,
to
right?
somebody there.
If
Turkey
someone says
sucks.
turkey is mid, that's the worst take ever. How dare you all? I love turkey.
uh, let's see. Oh, movie trivia. That's what we should do with Brendan not here. What do you
With
say?
Brendan not here. I like it. I just saw, by the way, the holdovers the other night and really loved it. So
What was the holdovers?
Holdovers is the new Alexander Payne, Paul Giamatti movie. How about that? If you can name, and I mean, you have Google right in front of you, so that's not really fair, but how about if someone can come up with the first Giamatti Alexander Payne link up, what movie that was?
Oh, okay.
That'd be kind of.
Okay. That's our
You
trivia
want to do
for
that? You want
tonight.
to do it? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do
Because I
that.
don't know the answer to this.
Sure you do.
I think I do, but that's okay.
Someone's going to
Put it out
grab
there.
it here in 2 seconds. So, but fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. It's I think some people might, it's not like an action movie, but it's funny, it's dramatic, it's really, really good. And if you liked the first Alexander Payne team up with Paul Giamatti, you'll definitely like this one.
Okay.
That's what I'd say. Yeah. It's
Okay.
not when Paul Giamatti turns blue. And yes, Adam Fox just nailed it with Sideways. Adam Fox gets it.
Adam Fox.
How about that? The guy who works at Fox 40, Adam Fox, wins, and he's listening to a Kings Beat podcast where I'm assuming he really likes De'Aaron Fox.
He
Probably has a
works at
De'Aaron
Fox
reason.
40? That might
No, I'm
violate it.
saying me. I work at Fox 40.
Oh.
Just a lot of Fox. That kind of
Oh,
stuff.
got it. Adam Fox. Hey, Adam Fox, send me an email. jameshamnba@gmail.com. And I will, I'm sure someone could create a fake Adam Fox email
Hey,
and
it's
send me
me.
an email between now and then. But send me an email really quick, and I will give you a free 1-year subscription to the Kings Beat premium subscription, courtesy of the great Pete Youngman. Right?
That's incredible.
I
Good job,
did.
Pete.
I did love Sideways, and I did come up with that in my head while we were waiting for people to answer.
And if you haven't
Sweet.
seen Election, that's an early Alexander Payne movie. Fantastic. Matthew Broderick,
Oh,
Reese Witherspoon. Go check that one out.
okay. All right. Yeah. All kinds of good stuff. All right. Do we have any final thoughts? Let's wrap this thing up tonight. Sorry, we would keep you guys going for a while longer, but Sean's got somewhere to be. I don't know. Do you have any final thoughts, Sean?
I'm really looking forward to Thanksgiving, even only because I think the 49ers are going to give me a lot on my plate tomorrow, pun intended. Seeing them up in Seattle, seeing them kind of back into form after a couple games. I'm a believer, man. I really believe in that team. I think the people freaking out after the three game losing streak was a little premature. Certainly there were moments that didn't look like themselves, but how about a perfect passer rating from Brock Purdy?
He's so good, man. Seriously. Like, I've been saying it all season long, and I predicted at the beginning of the season he was going to be like 4,300 yards and 30 touchdowns, and he's literally on pace for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns.
Yeah,
like he's on pace to be elite, and that's good to see. Yeah, I'm excited. I love watching football all day on Thanksgiving. I try to ignore all the noise around me, which there's a lot because I have a big family, and I just like to hone in and watch the game. We have rules, like I have to watch the game on mute.
What?
Yeah, during dinner time. Like, once
that's
the meal is
acceptable.
on the
Okay.
table, then we have to turn the volume down. And then I do it at my in-laws' house. They're like, "Why are you turning the volume down?" I'm like, "Well, I thought that was a rule." It's like, "No, it's just a rule at my other Thanksgiving." Okay, let's see what else we got. We're gonna have a podcast later in the week. Hopefully, we will find Brendan. Where's Brendan? And we'll plug him in here to the podcast. We were gonna do one on Sunday night after the game, just me and Brendan, because Sean had something, because Sean was at the 49ers game. But I got sick and couldn't do it. So I started to fade very, very quickly and was like, there's no way. It seems like during late at night, I start coughing everywhere.
I've got a lot of high school football section championships coming up Friday, Saturday. So it'll be, some good matchups out there if you're into that sort of thing. So
last question for you, Sean. What's your favorite side dish?
Macaroni and cheese. Come on.
Thanksgiving?
Absolutely. Well, yes, absolutely. But I will say, because I have an aunt who is Korean and she makes incredible wontons. So we've got wontons typically present at usually it's like an appetizer though. So that's if that's not there, I'm usually very pissed off. I'm very sour.
All right. My mom makes kolaches. I'm Czechoslovakian. She makes it's a Czechoslovakian Danish. She makes those in the morning. That's
Okay.
usually my favorite thing. And then the charcuterie board, and then I like dark meat when it comes to turkey. I don't know. I don't
I
like.
like all the meat. Like like you'll hunt and you'll kind of pick around a little bit on the tray there if you're carving up your turkey, but there are certain parts I won't touch. I do like the leg, so I could say I could do a mix of white and dark meat, but I'm always looking for the piece that doesn't look very dry. So you got to
Oh,
have really good turkey.
okay. Well, that's where the dark meat comes in. I also like. We also have a little ham there as well, which I
Do you
like
do the
mustard on my
glaze,
ham.
like that sugary glaze, that
Oh
mustard
yeah, I
glaze or
think
whatever?
my cousin goes to the honey bake store and gets a
Cool.
ham. So, okay. I think that's going to do it for this edition of the Kingsby podcast. Make sure that if you're still here listening to us, give us a thumbs up. Give us a rating and review wherever you watch. Uh, Jump on board with Prize Picks if you are so inclined. It's really fun and it adds a new element to your game watching. Jump on board with the King's Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com, become a premium subscriber. We will give away another one of our year-long memberships next podcast, courtesy of the great Pete Youngman. So watch for that. We'll probably try to do another live show, maybe. That would be cool. So then that way we can kind of do the same thing, except for we'll have to involve Brendan. We can't just be a jerk and do a something cool that Brendan doesn't understand at all. So anyway, thanks for tuning in to the Kings Beat podcast. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. It's been great seeing everyone in the chat, and Sean and I will be back later this week, hopefully with Brendan. So for Box 40, Sean Cunningham, I am James Hammy, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We'll see you very soon.